On to news on the go for you now. The Standing Committee on Public Accounts is hearing the audit outcomes and the financial performance of the SABC. Let's listen in.
We've put together a project team to focus on this transition from one system to another. We had a lot of learnings last year, which unfortunately also resulted in us having some revenue loss. But going forward, it's a key focus of ours. We've put together some technical expertise. And at the moment, to the CEO's point, we've tested it on radio. And we're looking at probably, I would say, to be safe, in Q3 of this financial year. That's when we can say that we can fully complete the transition, because it's the one area where we can't take chances, because that's where the money gets lost. If you don't schedule the ad, you must refund the advertiser. It's that simple. So that's what we're looking at. So that's basically, Honourable, where we did not meet the target for Landmark. But it's a key. We've got a war room. We've put together a strong team, and we are certain that by the end of Q3, we will have achieved the transition from one system to another. Thank you, Honourable.
Thank you. Would you like to say something?
Thank you very much, and through the Deputy Minister. Perhaps it's also very important to just weigh in on this from the side of the department, from its oversight functions, to Honourable Bila's question. So the SABC was allocated the 3.2 billion, and it was over 2 tranches. After obviously the reflection from the second tranche, which was done in March 2020, the SABC then reported that it has spent 99% by March 2024, and that the turnaround was complete. But when we reflected from the department, we really saw some very shortfalls with regards to that, and not an accurate description. And as you've also observed to Honourable Bila's question, so then it was supposed to be for funding, as well as obviously to improve the financial position, as well as the sustainability, and those were not met. And as such, the department, and I think various ministers, and including Minister Ngungubele at the time, then interrogated this to then say the strategy was actually perhaps at fault, but there are a number of areas that we needed to reflect on. The board was then asked to say we need to look and develop a long-term strategy. We also asked for a proper commercial strategy as well, to look at how do we measure this sustainability. So I think the SABC is correct to say post that period, they've actually come up with interventions. But during that, we just need to be honest to then say the report of saying the turnaround was delivered and the funds were spent was inaccurate. But I think the assurance, and what we've also seen from the commercial plans post the reporting period, has actually now showing some level of responsiveness, but it is not on the 3.2 billion. So what we have then done, because that was public funds, we have written to the AG. Beyond just them conducting oversight, I personally wrote to the AG to then say they need to help us to interrogate how then that 3.2 billion was actually utilized and what it was utilized for. So that work is still under it's still under consideration by the AG. The last of the correspondences I'm looking at, Honourable, the first was them writing in March, I think, or May 2024, followed by an engagement on the 2nd of September, and then a follow-up letter, November 2024. But they've given us assurance that because they were busy with other auditing processes, after they've concluded the audit period, then they were going to actually give a lot of focus and weight in terms of then their interrogating and analyzing. We will be able to share that report once it has been concluded. Thank you.
All right.
Chair, I wanted to just quickly through you to give, because Ms. Makopeni has been leading in this regard. So, yes.
Yeah. So I was going to say, can we, during break, because we're going to take a break, can you decide who answers? And I'm doing this for the sake of managing time. So what we end up with is 4 or 5 people giving different pieces of answers, and it takes time. So I need your cooperation with that. Okay. Otherwise, we are not going to finish today. So do you still want to make it, or is it fine? Because I wanted us to take a break.
Thank you, Chair. My consent, if you could just give it 2 minutes, because when you come back, we're going to take that
Sure.
as advisement. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chair of the committee. Just a quick one. On the points that have been raised by DG about the work that we've been asked to do to ascertain exactly how the funds were utilized that were allocated to the SABC. From our internal assessment, what we have actually learned, which is the point that the member was raising about what lessons have we learned from that process. One acknowledged the fact that this was not a long-term investment for the SABC. And it was not recapitalization of the SABC. It was to deal with specific problems that were identified at a point in time, which was a fixed point in the trading process of the SABC. And as a result of the things that were identified, probably it's only content that spoke to revenue generating activities through audiences and then advertising and money that would have been generated from that exercise. But much of the money was going to service debt and dealing with infrastructure issues that required attention, but not necessarily investing in infrastructure that the SABC requires. This is one of the reasons we are not seeing any positive returns on the money that was given by Treasury to the SABC. It's because it was meant to fix what was a problem at that time. And in fact, I even recall, because I was still within the system in operations, in 2019, we didn't even have money to run elections. Elections were run from a budget that was an OPEX budget of the news division. That's how dire the situation was. So the money that came, it was not necessarily, it didn't assist the SABC to build capacity to generate revenue. It was more on stabilization of the SABC. And in fact, building to that, what we have since done in trying to take the SABC through a different phase, which is now growth, we have even added, as you would have seen in the presentations, there was a pillar that didn't exist, which is research and innovation, because we realize that had that been factored into the bailout at the time or the turnaround strategy, things would have turned out differently, because even the investments that were made in infrastructure were not necessarily addressing the future of what the SABC would have required in terms of performance. It dealt with what we needed at the time. If, for instance, you needed to buy a play, or you needed to replace a playout system, that's exactly what you would do. But digitally, and looking at how the world has evolved, it didn't go into investing in such. So that's what we have observed internally. Thank you.
All right. No, thank you very much. So shall we take a break? The time is now 11. Because the bathroom facilities are limited, we'll allow 15 minutes. So can we be back here? Can we?
All right, live visuals there coming to you from Parliament. The SABC and the leadership of the public broadcaster appearing before the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, and some hard truths there from Patiso Makopeni, former editor-in-chief of SABC News, also now a member of the board. There's going to be a 15-minute adjournment as the parliamentarians continue probing into the SABC's finances, which have always, I suppose, been a matter of interest given the important role that the SABC plays, not only in the broadcasting space, but also in, I suppose, ensuring that some of the constitutional obligations of the country are met. You know, access to information, for example. A lot of people, millions, still depend solely on the SABC for information, which is crucial for any thriving democracy. And that's why that's a story we'll certainly keep watching for you. As soon as the SCOPA, the parliamentarians there, are back in session, we'll be back live for you in that room.